It has been nearly 2 weeks since the assassination of Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan. Despite the predominantly positive coverage she's received in her death, her life was full of contradictions. She was at least partly responsible for some of the problems the world now has with Pakistan, including the country's nuclear program and the creation of the Taliban in Afghanistan. Nusrat Hussain was an officer in the Pakistani Air Force and is the founding editor of The Miracle, BC's first Muslim newspaper. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
This issue of the assassination, which was a tragedy that the world witnessed, and we've seen video on YouTube and other kind of places, CNN and others. We watched this, and many people have framed this as a very sad day for the potential of democracy to flourish in Pakistan. And yet, I think many people have not understood that the issue both of her death and her life are complicated issues. Let's start, first of all, with the assassination. Do you think there was a lapse in the security force that led to her death?
Well, we can say partially, but if you go through the videos, and which is now available to all the world and everybody has seen it and watched it, well, the fact remains that if she hadn't emerged out of that rooftop of that vehicle, she would be living today. So and then about the security issue, how can you determine that how many people are required to secure a place when, in particular, you have suicide bombers?
Right. How do you stop that?
How do you stop that? You could not secure that in America, in USA, and you are having these all, where American forces are in Afghanistan and Iraq. You cannot do anything about that kind of security.
You'd had an op-ed piece in your newspaper, and you said there's a fine line dividing bravery, valor, and courage from being unintelligent, thoughtless, and careless. Right. Are you saying she's responsible for her own death?
I mean, she was careless. She neglected very serious security issues. She was there herself, and it was her own life. And she was courageous, no question about that. But when you cross that line of courage and valor and bravery, you probably become, free of all the thoughts.
So there's a recklessness that you think she had.
Probably, that's what it was, because there were the three people in that vehicle, and they are all fine.
So, but if it wasn't this time, wouldn't it be another time? I mean, she had this other assassination attempt that she escaped, and now this one.
She was very well aware of these things. And you have to understand, how do you define all these things? When she was attacked for the first time, it was just a matter of few minutes that she came down. And then second time when she came into Islamabad, in Rawalpindi, where she has been attacked, she wanted to, in November sometimes, she wanted to hold a rally, but she was kept under house arrest at that time.
Right.
So that was the security measures that the Pakistani government took for her. But at that time, again, then you start talking about freedom of expression, speech, and all these things. So you really have to balance these things. And then ultimately, when government provides you that, okay, you go and hold your possessions, and they provide you
some level of security. But how do you stop mobs of people from blowing themselves up, for instance? Yes. Let's ask the question about Musharraf. He was asked last night or the night before on 60 Minutes, are you at all responsible, is your government all responsible for her death? And he obviously backed away from that and got very uncomfortable at the accusation. Do you think it's possible that it's even plausible that he might have a vested interest in her assassination? Could he carry something like that out?
In my opinion, he shouldn't have any interest in her assassination. His interest was more that she should stay there, and he was looking forward to, and as we know it, and there were news coming in, that he was trying to make a deal with her, because she was his best bet. That was the way he could have strengthened his own position as president.
So he needed her, you're saying?
Certainly, this is all politics, and in politics, you have to compromise with each other.
Right.
And that's what they did. Otherwise, if you look ideologically, Army and Pakistan People's Party, they don't go together because they are two different organizations.
We look at Pakistan, and it's a very complicated country. We see these things in the news. One of the things that I've always struck with is the presence of extreme Islam within Pakistan. You have these madrasas, you had the issue of the Red Mosque, storming of the Red Mosque. you have some of the most extreme madrasas in the world located in Pakistan. Why is that going on? And why is that kind of allowed to bubble up and foster? And how come that those elements haven't been shut down?
Okay, you have to go back in the history. You have to go back to the to the Soviet era, when Soviets were coming into Afghanistan. I'm talking about the early 80s. And that was the time these people were created and they were supported.
And you're saying Bhutto may have been responsible for the creation of some of these extremists?
Probably. We can blame everyone, including our Western people.
Yeah, for sure. The money that was brought over to
Pakistan. And because they are national interest. And for national interest, there is nothing like personal friendship. These are national interests. Americans have their own interest. We have our own interest. Pakistan has their own interest. So these madrasas were created at a time against the Soviets, because Americans went into Afghanistan and said, let's start jihad with the Russians, the infidels.
Right, and so the Soviets were worse enemies than the extreme Islamists.
Right, at that time.
Right.
But now scenario has changed.
Yeah, isn't
now
that interesting?
It is the same forces which were fighting against the Soviet Union.
Right.
These people were the Mujahideen at that time.
Yeah.
Because they got all the money, and I was in the Air Force at that time. I know we have been sending them American Stinger missiles, and all the weapons was going through Pakistan, and Pakistan and America were together with the Mujahideens. They were Mujahideen at that time, and they were provided all these weapons to fight the Russians. But now they have turned around. So now they become terrorists.
Right. I'm going to pick up on this story because they're not just terrorists, but Pakistan is the only Islamic country with a nuclear weapon. Let's talk about that right after the break.
Production assistance for The Standard is presented in part by the Metropolitan Hotel, ultra-luxurious and conveniently located in downtown Vancouver.
I'm back with Nusrat Hussain, a former officer in the Pakistani Air Force. He's the founding editor of The Miracle, BC's first Muslim newspaper. We're talking about the assassination of Benazir Bhutto, but she's a very complicated figure. And her father, who was the first democratically elected leader, one of the democratically elected leaders, he was the one who got the bomb, the nuclear bomb, into Pakistan. He said this, he says, we will eat grass if we have to in order to build a bomb.
Right.
This, I mean, if that was happening now in any other country, Iran, other places, we'd be very nervous, as Western countries, and an Islamic state with nuclear power. Here we have a country that who's done tests and has nuclear bombs. Does this create is there a false sense of security that Pakistan has secured these weapons? Could not some of these extremists get a hold of them? Is there that kind of reality going on in Pakistan?
Randall, right now, if you talk about the security of the nuclear bomb, when Pakistan secured it, and when the bomb they made it, it started from the time Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, father of Benazir Bhutto, started it. But the bomb only, they made the explosion once. And primarily, they were securing the bomb because India had a bomb. And Pakistan and India has a historical, they had
a standoff.
They had all the times. So that was a requirement for the existence of Pakistan by itself. And they exploded the bomb only after India had carried out the attack sometimes back in the 80s.
But yeah, let me be honest with you. Sure, it's one thing to say, okay, Pakistan has this bomb because it needs to balance itself in power with India. But when I begin to recognize that some of the most extreme suicide bombers are coming out of Pakistan, that doesn't make me sleep well at night.
Right. Yeah, right.
How do you respond to that?
But if you think about the security of procuring those nuclear weapons, Absolutely, they are safe because Pakistan has a command and control system in place. So it is like this, that, I mean, I don't have any inside information that I'm telling you. It's all available on the net, and my information is from this. So it is, the command and control system is, it operates in a way, let's put it in this way, that they have the hardware and they have the software. Hardware and software are not together at the same place. They are kept at two different places. And I was told in certain cases, the people who have the hardware do not know who's got the software. And those who have the software, they are not aware who has got the...
So who knows both? Who can launch the missile?
The president, and there is a committee. They have the Joint Chief of Staff on that committee, the President of Pakistan, the Chief of the Army Staff. And there are 4 or 5 people, I'm not too sure, but it's all available on the net. Anybody can surf and find it out.
You know, I want to go back to Benazir Bhutto because she's a very a tragic figure and a very complicated one. She has 2 brothers who were apparently assassinated, maybe poisoned. Her father was hung. She was separated from her husband. She raised children by herself. You know, it's a very tragic character, and yet when she was in power, she was responsible for the creation of possibly the Taliban and the securing of nuclear warheads, or not warheads, but the missiles from North Korea. And so she's a very complicated person here. What's your opinion of her? Is she a flawed character?
She is, if you look, you know, we cannot say, the fact remains that she became prime minister twice. And she was trained in a way, she went to the best colleges and schools,
Oxford,
Harvard and Oxford. So she knew everything, how it operates in the West or in North America. So she was very well versed with the etiquettes and lifestyle over here. And now she comes back to Pakistan, and in Pakistan, she became a figure automatically because she was so charismatic, and she was the daughter of the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So she was a leader, but then if you look at her, unfortunately, she could not deliver whatever she has been saying. That was the
She had chances and never did deliver.
But she could not. But she has been always talking about those things. Later on, I heard sometimes her on television, her interviews. So she would always say that she was never given the chance to deliver, but she cannot blame others for that.
Right.
She's, as a leader,
you said in your paper, I'm not a big fan of hers.
Yes.
Why not? Give me the one thing that you struggled with most about her.
Well, the biggest problem with her is that belief in that philosophy. She believed in democracy. She always came out and talked about democracy. But see, she appointed herself as the lifetime chairperson of the People's Party.
Almost like a monarchy. Now her son takes it over.
Yeah. Now, if you see, it is all monarchy and autocracy and, you know, all these things. So that is where I saw that thing, which never made me, you know, personally, made me a great fan of her. But we cannot deny the fact that she did command the hearts of the people, because whatever she said, poor and the deprived people, they got a lot of strength out of those words.
We have about a minute left. There's been a New York Times article that says the U.S. might be putting troops in, possibly to go for covert operation. What would be, in 30 seconds left, what would be the fallout if the U.S. put U.S. soldiers in Pakistan?
That's going to be a very, very destructive for everyone, because in Pakistan, this thing is not going to be liked. And then all those forces that we are thinking, that Taliban and the extremist forces that Pakistan is fighting right now against them, you don't know in political scenario what happens. Again, these forces can start regrouping, because nuclear assets are very important for Pakistan, and they are going to take care of those things at any cost.
And so you're saying if that happens, if Bush gets on board with this and says, we want to deal with Osama bin Laden, we don't think Pakistan is chasing him good enough, well enough, you think if there are U.S. soldiers there, there's going to be severe consequences for that?
That's what I feel.
Well, we're in very interesting times. Thanks for joining us on our show tonight, and I hope to have you back again.
Thank you very much, Randall, and thanks a lot.
You can read the Miracle newspaper online at miraclenews.com. I'll be right back.